Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reddit Visuals. I used to believe that if you stayed calm, explained yourself clearly, and showed up consistently, people would eventually respect you. Turns out some people don't want understanding, they want silence they can exploit. And that realization cost me more than I expected. But it taught them even more. I'm 41 years old. I work in operations management for a regional logistics company, which is a fancy way of saying I solve problems before they turn into disasters. I've always been the guy people come to when things break systems, schedules, finances, sometimes even families. I don't raise my voice, I don't dramatize, I talk things through. Or at least, I used to. I met my wife, Lauren, 4 years ago. She was recently divorced, juggling two kids, her son Evan, who was 15 at the time, and her daughter Brianna, who was 13. Their biological father lived 2 states away, paid child support irregularly, and made big promises he rarely kept. The kind of guy who'd FaceTime on Christmas morning but forget their birthdays entirely. I wasn't trying to replace him. I never walked in calling myself Dad. I just showed up. Consistently. Quietly. And apparently that made me invisible. At first, things were manageable. Awkward, but manageable. The kids were polite in that surface-level way, lots of okay and fine. Very little warmth. Lauren warned me early on that they'd been through a lot and needed time. I believed her. I gave them space. And while I stayed quiet about my role, I also quietly fixed everything that broke around them. When Evan missed the bus, I adjusted my schedule and drove him. When Brianna's laptop crashed 2 days before a school project was due, I stayed up until 2 a.m., recovering files and reformatting the hard drive. When the Wi-Fi went down, when the car battery died, when the utilities got mixed up after the move into Lauren's apartment, it was me. Always me. No speeches, no recognition, just solutions. I thought maybe actions would speak louder than words. I thought maybe competence would earn respect. I thought wrong. About 18 months into our relationship, we moved into a larger house together. Not a mansion, just a solid 4-bedroom place closer to better schools and Lauren's job. She couldn't afford it on her own, and I didn't mind stepping up. I covered the down payment, handled the inspection issues, negotiated repairs with contractors who tried to overcharge us, set up the mortgage logistics. The kids each got bigger rooms, new furniture, new routines. Evan got a gaming setup he'd been begging for. Brianna got the walk-in closet she'd circled in a magazine. And I thought, maybe now they'll feel more settled. Maybe now they'll see me as part of this family instead of just the guy who pays for things and drives them places. That illusion shattered on a random Tuesday night about 6 months after the move. I was in the kitchen making coffee, one of those fancy pour-overs I'd gotten into because it gave me something meditative to do after long days. I heard them in the living room. Evan and Brianna were arguing over the TV remote, which was typical. I wasn't eavesdropping, the house just carries sound in a way we hadn't anticipated when we bought it. Evan snapped, "Just ask him to fix it, he always does." And Brianna laughed, this casual, dismissive laugh that cut deeper than any insult, and said, "Yeah, he talks way too much for someone who doesn't even matter." I froze. The coffee kettle started whistling, but I couldn't move. Then Evan added, "Seriously, why does he always explain stuff? It's like, dude, you're not even our dad, just fix it and shut up." There was laughter. Casual. Comfortable. Like this was a routine they'd performed before, maybe dozens of times when I wasn't around to hear it. I didn't storm in. I didn't confront them. I stood there, holding a mug I never drank from, and something shifted inside me. Not anger, not even sadness, really. Clarity. Pure, cold clarity. That night, Lauren noticed I was quiet. She asked if everything was okay. I said, "Yeah, just tired." And that wasn't a lie. I was exhausted from carrying weight no one acknowledged, from being the infrastructure everyone relied on but nobody valued. Here's the thing people don't realize about problem solvers. When we stop talking, it's not because we ran out of words. It's because we ran out of reasons to waste them on people who aren't listening. So I stopped. I didn't announce anything. I didn't sulk. I didn't withdraw emotionally or become cold. I just stopped filling gaps. I stopped being the safety net they didn't appreciate. I showed up to family dinners. I smiled. I made small talk. But the invisible labor? The anticipatory problem solving? The explaining why things work the way they do? Gone. The first test came fast. 2 days later, Evan overslept and missed the bus. This happened maybe once every couple of weeks, and normally I would have driven him without question. That morning, I finished my coffee, grabbed my keys, and headed to work at my normal time. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Evan. I looked at the screen and let it ring. Then a text. Are you home? I didn't respond. Then another. I missed the bus. I put my phone in my bag. He ended up walking. 42 minutes in early autumn cold. Showed up late to first period. Got detention for the third tardy of the month, which triggered an automatic parent meeting I knew Lauren would have to handle alone. That afternoon, Lauren called me at work. Why didn't you take Evan to school? Her voice had this edge to it, like I'd deliberately sabotaged something. I said calmly, he didn't ask me to. He texted you, she said. After I'd already left, I replied, which was technically true, even if I'd seen the messages. She paused. He said you were still home. I was finishing my coffee. I had a meeting at 8:30. He knows what time I leave. I kept my voice neutral, professional. The same tone I use when a client tries to blame me for their poor planning. She let it go, but I could hear the confusion in her silence. Next came the Wi-Fi incident. Brianna burst into the kitchen one evening, frustrated because her streaming show kept buffering during what she claimed was a crucial episode. Normally, I'd reset the router, check for firmware updates, call the provider if necessary, maybe run a diagnostic on which devices were hogging bandwidth. Instead, I looked up from my tablet and said, "Did you try unplugging the router and plugging it back in?" No. She rolled her eyes so hard I'm surprised she didn't strain something. Never mind. She went to her room. The Wi-Fi stayed slow all night. I heard her complaining to a friend on the phone about our terrible internet. I said nothing. Then came the real problems, the ones that cost actual money and created actual consequences. Evan forgot to submit his paperwork for his driver's license application. There was a deadline. I'd mentioned it twice, left a note on the counter, even texted him a reminder link. He ignored all of it. Deadline passed. The DMV appointment got pushed back 8 weeks. He blamed the DMV website. Lauren blamed the school for not reminding students. I said nothing, just nodded along like I agreed. Brianna missed a payment deadline for a school trip to Washington, D.C., $350, due by a specific date for the deposit. I'd seen the form. I'd even set a calendar reminder, which I then deleted. Late fee applied an additional $75, and her spot got moved to a wait list. She cried about it. Lauren was furious, asking how this had happened. I said, I guess the email got buried. These things happen. Things piled up quickly when the invisible scaffolding disappeared. Laundry started backing up because I stopped doing the load balancing I used to do, taking inventory of what was running low, starting loads before anyone asked. Now, if it wasn't in the hamper in the laundry room, it didn't get washed. Evan ran out of clean clothes for gym class. Brianna complained she had nothing to wear to a friend's birthday party. Dishes stacked in the sink because I stopped loading the dishwasher unless it was my own plate. The groceries I used to stock the specific snacks, the sandwich supplies, the breakfast items everyone liked ran out and stayed out. I bought what I needed. They could figure out the rest. Then Evan's car situation imploded, and that's when things got expensive. He'd gotten his driver's license about 2 months before the whole doesn't even matter incident. I'd helped him buy a used Honda Civic, spent weeks researching reliable models, negotiated with the seller, paid for a pre-purchase inspection. It was in his name, but I'd covered the insurance difference and helped him set up a maintenance schedule. I'd shown him how to check the oil, explained why regular maintenance mattered, walked him through the owner's manual. He'd nodded along like he was absorbing it, but I don't think he heard a word. 3 weeks into my silence, the car started making a grinding noise. I heard it when he pulled into the driveway one evening. Anyone who knows cars knows that sound, something in the transmission or the differential, something expensive. I was in the garage organizing tools when he came in. Car sounds weird, he said, not quite making eye contact. I said and went back to sorting screwdrivers. He waited. I didn't elaborate. Like, should I be worried? He asked. I shrugged. Probably should get it checked out. Can you look at it? I'm not a mechanic, Evan. I wouldn't know what I was looking at. This was partially true. I could identify problems, but I couldn't fix a transmission. But you know car stuff, he pressed. I know how to Google things, I said. So do you. He stood there another moment, then left. I heard the car start up again a few minutes later, that grinding noise unmistakable. He drove it anyway. 2 weeks later, the transmission failed completely, just gave out in a parking lot near his school. Towing fee, diagnostic fee, repair estimate, $3,200 for a car that was worth maybe $5,000 on a good day. Lauren called me in a panic. Evan's car is dead. The mechanic says it's the transmission. He says it's been making noise for weeks. That's unfortunate, I said. Can you go talk to the mechanic? Maybe get a second opinion? I'm sure the mechanic knows what he's doing. But you're good at this stuff. You know how to negotiate. I'm good at researching and asking questions, I corrected. Evan could do the same thing. He has a phone. Silence on her end. Then, what's going on with you? Nothing. I'm just busy with work. This is a good learning opportunity for Evan. The car sat at the mechanic for a week because they couldn't decide what to do. The repair cost more than the car's value. Evan needed the car for his part-time job at a grocery store. He ended up borrowing Lauren's car, which meant she had to coordinate rides or use my car, which I didn't offer freely anymore. I made her ask each time. The financial pressure started mounting in ways Lauren wasn't used to managing. Our home insurance renewal came up. This was something I'd handled for the past 3 years without fanfare. I'd review the policy, check for better rates, make sure coverage limits were appropriate, pay the bill on time. This year, when the notice arrived, I placed the unopened envelope on the kitchen counter where we kept mail and left it there. Days passed. It sat in the pile. Lauren walked past it a dozen times. I said nothing. 2 weeks later, I got an automated email. Policy lapsed due to non-payment. I deleted it. 3 days after that, we got hit with a severe thunderstorm. Not unusual for our area in late spring, but this one brought heavy rain and minor flooding. Our basement took on water not catastrophic, but enough to damage stored furniture, some of Brianna's old school projects Lauren had been keeping, and a bunch of electronics Evan had down there, including his gaming backup equipment and some expensive speakers. The next morning, Lauren went downstairs and found the mess. I heard her gasp, then the sound of her frantically moving boxes. When she came upstairs, she was pale. The basement flooded, she said. I saw the weather alert, I replied. Lots of people probably got hit. We need to file an insurance claim. I nodded. Good idea. She pulled out her phone and started looking for the policy information. That's when she found the lapsed notice in her email. She was on the policy too, so she'd gotten the same warning I had. Her face went from confused to horrified. We don't have insurance, she said quietly. I looked up from my breakfast. The policy lapsed 2 weeks ago. We don't have coverage. I took a sip of coffee. That's unfortunate timing. You didn't pay it? I didn't receive the bill, I said, which was true. I'd put the envelope on the counter. It was in the mail pile. I must have missed it. There's a lot of mail. I figured you were handling it since you usually check the counter. This wasn't entirely fair. She didn't usually check the mail, I did. But I said it anyway. Her hands were shaking. Do you know how much this is going to cost to fix? I'd estimate between $800 and $1,200, depending on what got damaged. She stared at me. And you're just calm about this? Getting upset won't change it. We'll have to pay out of pocket. It happens. That night was the first time she really called me out. The kids were in their rooms. Lauren sat across from me at the kitchen table, arms folded. You've been different lately, she said. Different how? Distant. Like you're here, but you're not participating. I set down my tablet. I'm participating. I go to work, I come home, I'm present at dinner. I'm here. You know what I mean. You've stopped helping. Have I? I kept my voice level. What have I stopped helping with? She fumbled. Evan's car, the insurance, the Wi-Fi issues, all the little things you used to just handle. I'm not a servant, Lauren. Those are things everyone in this house can handle. But you're good at them. So is Google. So is taking 5 minutes to read instructions or make a phone call. Her eyes narrowed. Are you punishing us for something? I leaned back. No, I'm just listening. Listening to what? To what your kids think of me, to what role I actually play here. She blinked. What are you talking about? That's when I told her. About the conversation I'd overheard. About Evan and Brianna discussing how I talk too much for someone who doesn't matter. About the casual cruelty of being reduced to a fix-it guy who should shut up and perform. She went quiet. Her face did this thing where I could see her rewinding through memories, probably remembering other comments she'd dismissed or laughed off. They're teenagers, she finally said. They say stupid things. They do, I agreed. And they're learning that stupid things have consequences. So you are punishing them? No, I'm letting them experience natural consequences. There's a difference. By letting everything fall apart? By not holding everything together for people who don't value the effort. She looked at me like I was a stranger. This isn't you. Maybe it is, I said. Maybe I've been performing a version of myself that was convenient for everyone else. She didn't have a response to that. The social repercussions came next, and they spread faster than I anticipated. Lauren's sister, Michelle, came over for dinner one weekend. Michelle was one of those people who spoke in loud observations and thought brutal honesty was a personality trait. She noticed immediately that something was off. You seem quiet, Dan, she said, pointing her fork at me. Just tired, I said. He's been super chill lately, Evan chimed in, not looking up from his plate. Finally knows when to shut up. The table went silent. Michelle's eyebrows shot up. Lauren's face flushed. Brianna looked down at her food. I smiled. I've been working on being a better listener. Michelle laughed, but it was uncomfortable. The rest of dinner was tense. 2 days later, Lauren told me Michelle had called her, concerned. Apparently, she'd noticed how stressed Lauren looked, how the kids seemed angrier than usual, how I seemed checked out. She'd asked if everything was okay in our marriage. Lauren had defended me, said everything was fine, but I could tell the question had rattled her. Then her mother called. Then her coworker mentioned something. Word was spreading in that subtle way it does in families and social circles. Something's wrong with Lauren's household, have you noticed? The humiliation Lauren felt from that external scrutiny did more than any conversation we'd had. But the breaking point came on a Friday night, about 2 months into my strategic silence. Evan needed help with a job application. Not the grocery store. He'd lost that job after his car died and he missed too many shifts. This was for a better position at a tech repair shop, something that could actually teach him skills and pay decently. He'd been sitting at the kitchen table for over an hour, staring at his laptop, visibly frustrated. I was reading in the living room. I could see him through the doorway, watched him struggle with the application portal, saw him typing and deleting. Finally, he got up and walked over, stood in the doorway, shifted his weight. Can you help me? He asked quietly. I looked up from my book. With what? The job application. I don't know how to answer some of these questions. What kind of questions? Like, describe a time you solved a problem under pressure. I nodded. That's a pretty standard behavioral question. He waited. I went back to my book. So, can you help me answer it? I marked my page. Do you want help, or do you want me to stop talking? His face flushed. What? I'm just trying to understand what you need, because I talk a lot for someone who doesn't matter, so I want to make sure my help is actually wanted. The color drained from his face. You heard that? I did. He looked at the floor. Brianna had appeared in the hallway, listening. I want help, Evan said quietly. I'm sorry. I was being a jerk. I studied him for a moment. He looked genuinely uncomfortable, maybe even ashamed. Good. Sit down, I said. He did. Here's the thing about behavioral questions, I began. They're not asking you to impress them with some heroic story. They're asking you to demonstrate self-awareness and problem-solving ability. Think of a real situation where something went wrong and you had to fix it. Walk me through one. He thought. I don't know. Nothing comes to mind. What about your car? I suggested. He winced. What about it? You ignored a problem until it became unfixable. That's actually a great example of what not to do. You could frame it as a learning experience. I failed to address a maintenance issue early, which cost me significantly more money and taught me the importance of preventive care. Shows growth. He blinked. I can say that? You can say anything that's true and demonstrates you learned something. We worked through the application together. Brianna drifted closer, eventually sitting at the table too. At one point she asked, "How do you always know this stuff?" "I don't always know it," I said. "I just know how to figure it out. That's the skill. Not having the answer, but knowing how to find it." "That's what you were always trying to teach us," Brianna said quietly, "when you'd explain things." "Yes. We thought you were just showing off," Evan admitted. "I know." Lauren had been watching from the kitchen doorway. I could feel her presence, even though I didn't look at her. When we finished the application, Evan closed his laptop. "I really am sorry," he said, "for what I said, for how we treated you." "I appreciate that," I said. And I did. But I also knew apologies without changed behavior meant nothing. Brianna spoke up, her voice shaky. "I wrote you something." She pulled out a folded piece of notebook paper from her hoodie pocket and slid it across the table. I opened it. It was a handwritten letter, messy and crossed out in places, clearly written and rewritten multiple times. The gist was an apology, an admission that she'd been taking me for granted, that she didn't realize how much I did until it stopped, that she was sorry for being cruel. At the bottom she'd written, "You do matter. I'm sorry I said you didn't." I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. "Thank you." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Lauren spoke from the doorway. "I think we should go to family counseling," she said. "All of us." I looked at her. She looked exhausted and vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. "Okay," I said. The counseling sessions were uncomfortable in the way that real growth always is. The therapist, a middle-aged woman named Dr. Reeves, didn't let anyone hide behind excuses. She made the kids articulate what they'd expected from me versus what they'd given in return. She made Lauren confront how she'd enabled their disrespect by not addressing it when she first noticed it. And she made me face the fact that my silent treatment, while understandable, was also a form of punishment that didn't actually solve the underlying issues. "You withdrew your labor to prove a point," Dr. Reeves said during one session, "and the point was proven. But now what?" "Now they know," I said. "They know you can withhold. They know things fall apart without you. But do they know how to build things with you?" That question sat heavy. Over the following weeks, we worked on rebuilding with actual structure. The kids created a list of household responsibilities they'd take ownership of. Evan started doing all the car maintenance research himself, though he'd ask me questions and I'd answer. Brianna took over managing the family calendar for appointments and deadlines. Lauren and I split the financial management tasks, with her handling insurance and utilities while I managed investments and bigger expenses. More importantly, the kids started asking me to explain things instead of just expecting me to fix things. And when I explained, they listened. Evan got the job at the tech repair shop. 3 weeks in, he came home excited about diagnosing a laptop problem and told me the whole process. I listened, asked questions, told him I was proud of him. He smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. Brianna made the Washington, D.C. trip after all she'd earned the money for the late fee and the remaining balance by tutoring younger kids in math, something she was naturally good at. She sent me pictures from the trip with captions like, "Wish you were here to explain the history stuff." Things didn't magically reset to perfect. We still had arguments. The kids still slipped into old patterns sometimes. But there was a foundation now, a mutual understanding that respect goes both ways. One night, about 4 months after everything had imploded and rebuilt, I was in the garage working on a project. Evan came out and leaned against the workbench. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." "Did you ever actually stop caring about us, or were you just making a point?" I set down my tools. I never stopped caring, but I did stop believing that caring alone was enough. You can care about someone and still refuse to let them treat you poorly. He nodded slowly. "I get that now." "Good." "For what it's worth," he said, "you matter, Like, a lot. I didn't see it before, but I do now. I felt something crack open in my chest, something that had been locked down tight for months. "Thank you," I said. "That means a lot." He helped me finish the project installing new shelving in the garage. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, then talked about his plans for community college, about whether he should save up for a better car or fix the Honda. I gave advice when asked and listened when he just needed to think out loud. Later that night, Lauren and I were getting ready for bed. She sat on the edge of the mattress, watching me. "You were right," she said. "About what?" "About all of it. I should have said something the first time I heard them disrespect you. I should have made it clear you weren't just the help." "You were trying to keep the peace," I said, "at your expense. That wasn't fair." I sat down next to her. "We're figuring it out now. That's what matters." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I was so scared you were going to leave." "I thought about it," I admitted. "There were days I almost packed a bag." "What stopped you?" "I wanted to see if it was fixable, and I wanted them to understand what they'd lose." "They understand now?" "Yeah," I said. "They do." So, here's my final question for all of you watching. Was I the asshole for going silent and letting everything fall apart so they could see what I'd been holding together? Or was it the wake-up call they needed? Some people say I should have just communicated better from the start. Maybe they're right. But I'd tried that. I'd explained. I'd been patient. I'd modeled the behavior I wanted to see. Sometimes people don't value what they have until it's gone, even temporarily. Would you have done the same thing in my position, or would you have handled it differently? Drop a comment and tell me your thoughts. I'm genuinely curious what you would have done. And if this story resonated with you, or if you've been in a similar situation, please hit that like button and subscribe to Reddit Visuals. Your support helps us bring more real stories like this one to light. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.